Sexuality. It's confusing enough for cis people from what I've been told, and you're telling me that we have to add this whole gender identity thing to the mix? No wonder it's all so confusing. I think I've gotten things mostly figured out now, so why don't we have a chat, as I'm sure that my experience may be able to help you in some way. Hello my darlings, and welcome to my little corner of the internet, where I share and discuss the things that I've learnt and discovered about myself as a trans woman. Now, funny enough, the exploration of my own sexuality probably began around the same time that I started heavily avoiding all the questioning about my gender identity. So it's been a very long time, and the questioning was probably started by when I was younger. A male friend would often get a little close to me, and I started to realize that I would have butterflies in my stomach when he would do so. So this set off a series of questioning, and in fact I would eventually come out as bisexual to my close friends back in 2013. Although I never came out to my family because I just felt that I could tackle that whenever it was necessary, because I had only dated girls until that point. Eventually I felt like I was just into women, and in fact after coming out as transgender I sent my dad a letter saying that I was a lesbian and had always known I was a lesbian. Let's keep that little lie between us, alright, because now I know I'm not one. Like, it was true at the time, if we forget about the whole coming out as bi thing. Anyway, let's get back on topic, because the point is that it really took until my transition and getting used to living as my authentic self that my feelings around sexuality became clearer. So, talking about making things clearer, labels. Do they actually? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, and so many more. With so many words categorizing sexuality, surely they must help, right? I think labels are perfect for giving other people a basic idea of our sexual orientation, so they know if they have a chance. But they really don't contain the full picture for us to understand. From the outside, they can really seem like little boxes that we've got to fit ourselves into, each one coming with stereotypes, whether they're from within or outside the community. We can really feel pressure to find that label that fits us perfectly, but you're not going to. It's the flaw that comes with using these basic discrete categories to describe something that's so complex and continuous. I describe myself as bisexual, so you can quickly understand that I'm attracted to all genders. However, that doesn't explain at all that there are more complex feelings that go on behind that label. So, I'm in a monogamous relationship with a feminine presenting woman, but I find myself fantasizing more about masculine presenting men and non-binary individuals. And I'm generally not attracted to feminine presenting men or masculine presenting women. Clearly non-binary individuals are a bit more difficult to categorize in this still fairly simple explanation. But you can already see that my sexuality isn't fully encompassed by the word bisexual, but it does a good enough job when I just want to convey the basic idea. And note, we also have our own personal interpretations of sexuality. I describe myself as bisexual rather than pansexual because gender clearly plays a role in my attraction. However, this nuance may not be understood by others, and they may in fact see it as me trying to exclude non-binary individuals, which I'm not. Goodness, this is already so confusing and it barely even started. So where else to go other than more labels? Okay, stay with me, I promise that this is different. So when you enter the LGBTQ+ space, you're often introduced to more concepts around sexual orientation. Now, whilst these are for sure important and should be known about, they can throw another spanner into the works. We find out that sexual orientation is just more nuanced than we first thought. So let me introduce you to the asexual and aromantic spectrum. The asexual spectrum describes how you experience that sexuality. So asexual means that you don't experience any sexual attraction at all. Demisexual means that you need to form an emotional bond before experiencing that sexual attraction, and there are other labels in the spectrum too. The aromantic spectrum, or romantic orientation, describes who you feel romantic attraction to. Now, romantic orientation and sexual orientation very often align, but not always, and for those that are more asexual, it's a much more useful indicator of attraction. There are also people who are asexual aromantic, or aroace, which is by far the coolest label, and I envy you. If any of these labels feel that they might fit you or have caused you to question a bit of how you experience sexuality, I highly encourage you to go and do some more research on them, just because I can't go into much detail about them here. Now, if we add these labels into the mix, I describe myself as biromantic demisexual, if you're interested. Whilst I think it's still really important to question these things, it can be overwhelming, and I don't think you have to question it too much if you don't think you're going to apply these labels to yourself, or if you don't think you need to go in that depth to be happy. However, you obviously need to respect and understand these labels for those that do use them. And why I say that you don't have to question these things too much is because I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of cis-het people who would describe themselves as demisexual if they knew about it, but they don't necessarily need that label to understand or be happy with their sexuality. They can maybe just understand their sexuality by the fact they need to go on a few dates to build that emotional bond before hopping into bed. Now, on the topic of asexuality, from my own experience and hearing those of the trans femmes around me, it's not uncommon to have a period of asexuality questioning after starting HRT. Why? Because you're changing your dominant sex hormone, and with that usually comes a change in libido. It can be a jarring change to undergo, and that change in how you experience sexuality understandably can provoke questioning. Also, after accepting your transness, you may become more aware of your dysphoria, and at least for me, it made me hyper aware of my bottom dysphoria, which acted an extra barrier between me and engaging with my sexuality, further making me question if I was asexual. This actually provoked me to reach out to asexual people I knew to ask for resources about it. However, now I've become more accustomed to how I experience sexuality, as well as becoming more understanding of my bottom dysphoria. As I said earlier, I now describe myself as demisexual because that's what I feel fits me the best. However, it's possible that my bottom dysphoria still does get in the way of my sexuality, and possibly after bottom surgery, that will change. So on that note, it's worth remembering that labels aren't fixed, and you don't have to be entirely certain. It's okay that if on your journey of self-discovery, you realize that they don't fit you anymore and you want to use different labels. So really don't put too much pressure on yourself to get them perfectly right the first time. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is that after accepting your transness, you may look back on your previous relationships in a different light. Since transitioning and accepting myself, looking back, I've realized that part of the reason I dated some of the girls I did was because I kind of wanted to be them. That's not to say that I didn't care for them or wasn't interested in them. I did love them, but there was part of that attraction that was being closer to someone that I wanted to be. I think it's difficult to describe this experience to anyone that hasn't felt it, but yeah, with that distance, I did begin to question if that was the only reason that I was with girls in the first place, and so Miss Lesbian, who had always known she was a lesbian, started to question whether she liked women at all. I think it's only natural that as the relationship with yourself changes, becoming more authentic, your relationship with your sexuality kind of changes too. Now, the thing you've been waiting for, society, or society, expects us to be attracted to the opposite gender, and that kind of flips for us. Before, as with my gender identity, I repressed any feelings of attraction that I had towards other men because of homophobia, and I didn't question any of the feelings I had towards women, and these were in fact encouraged by those around me. Since I've transitioned, it's been easier to confront and engage with those attractions towards men because it's what's expected of me. Transitioning can really give us the space and understanding to explore our sexuality in a new light. However, this can go in the other way too. I know that when I was with my girlfriend in public, I hesitated to hold her hand or interact with her in a more intimate way because of my internalized homophobia. I was scared that people around me would see me in a different way or see me as less of a woman, but clearly this was me projecting my own internal biases. So I for sure need to do more exploration and more dismantling of those internal biases, and you may have to do some of that too. So, to finish, as I haven't said it yet, your gender identity and your sexual orientation are separate, and one doesn't make the other any more or less valid. The trans experience results in a much more intimate and complex relationship with our own sexuality, because we are forced to explore it more deeply than cis people are. The way the world perceives us and expects us to act changes, as does our internal biases. So it's perfectly normal for it to be confusing and messy, but you'll come out the other side with a much more deeper and intimate understanding of yourself. So, no matter what label you currently use, or if you don't use any whilst you're questioning, You are valid and deserving of love. You still deserve to be happy and to enjoy life, and sometimes it's just nicer to go with the flow and question things later. So just listen to yourself and your body, because you really do know what's best for yourself in the end. And so concludes the first video in my new apartment. I hope you did enjoy it, and if you did, feel free to give this video a like, and if you want to see more content like this, obviously subscribe. If you want to share your experience with your sexuality, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Oh, and the cat is still here with me. She's just been a bit stressed, so she's hanging out on my bed almost all the time. She's taken up most of the bed when I'm trying to sleep. But on that note, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next. Bye!